Good evening, everyone. Welcome to California Today. I'm David Zhang. Here is a look at some of today's top stories. The Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals has just revived a lawsuit that alleges tech giant Cisco helped the Chinese Communist Party in its persecution of a spiritual group. Another plane crashed in Southern California. The accident took the lives of all those on board. A landslide continues to threaten homes in LA County. Over a dozen people have been evacuated as officials investigate the cause. This weekend was a busy one for Californians. In San Francisco, an appeals court revived a lawsuit against the tech giant Cisco. The plaintiffs allege that San Jose company helped China in persecuting a spiritual group. But the case was dismissed nearly 10 years ago. Now the judges are continuing the case.
According to the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, a lawsuit that accuses Cisco of helping the Chinese regime's violent persecution of Falun Gong can move forward to trial. Falun Gong is a faith group that's been heavily persecuted in China since 1999. Its adherents filed a lawsuit in 2011 against Cisco, along with its two former executives, longtime CEO John Chambers and Cisco's then vice president for Greater China, Freddie Chung. The plaintiffs were 13 Chinese nationals and a U.S. citizen, Charles Li. The lawsuit alleges the firm supplied technology to help China's communist officials build a vast surveillance network to identify and track Falun Gong practitioners and facilitate their subsequent arrest and torture. In the filing on July 7th, the federal appellate court found the plaintiffs' allegations sufficient for the case to proceed, thus reversing a 2014 lower district court decision to dismiss the case. In a 2-1 opinion reinstating the suit, U.S. Circuit Judge Marcia Berzin wrote, "We conclude that plaintiffs' allegations, accepted as true, are sufficient to state a plausible claim that Cisco provided essential technical assistance to the Douzheng of Falun Gong with awareness that the international law violations of torture, arbitrary detention, disappearance, and extrajudicial killing were substantially likely to take place." Douzheng is the Chinese Communist Party term referring to the violent political campaigns the regime instigates against perceived enemies. Ms. Berzon said that the company's actions, many of which took place on U.S. soil, constitute aiding and abetting the Chinese regime's abuses. The plaintiffs allege that Cisco marketed itself to target dissidents and became a facilitator of the regime's violent suppression of faith by designing and developing a comprehensive apparatus with U.S. technologies and talent in exchange for market access. The system the plaintiffs referred to is Golden Shield, the Chinese surveillance platform that's accessible nationwide in China. Cisco, they said, had designed, crafted, and given critical assistance to implement and fine-tune the Golden Shield project at a time when the regime was incapable of developing one on its own. The plaintiffs allege the resulting product was a surveillance system that can monitor Falun Gong adherents' internet activities in real time to identify, round up, and torture members of the religious group. It also builds detailed and constantly updated profiles of suspected and known Falun Gong adherents that Chinese security officers can retrieve anywhere in the country. They added that the information, including location, family, and contacts, aided the regime in rounding up adherents and coercing them to renounce their faith. Circuit Judge Morgan Kristen, who dissented, said, "I see several sound reasons to decline to recognize a cause of action for aiding and abetting the acts alleged in plaintiff's complaint, and I am deeply concerned about the practical consequences of allowing plaintiff's claims to go forward without input from the political branches." The plaintiff with U.S. citizenship, Charles Li, said he was arrested in 2003 for practicing Falun Gong in China. Li said he was beaten, deprived of sleep and food, and handcuffed in painful positions during his 3-year prison sentence. When he was finally released in 2006, he was also expelled from China. Cisco did not respond by press time for a comment.
And in Southern California, a tragic plane accident left behind a devastating scene. The crash claimed the lives of all on board. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
On Saturday, 6 people were killed outside of the French Valley Airport in Riverside County. The Cessna C-550 crashed into a field and burst into flames around 4:15 a.m. It was the second of 2 landing attempts that morning. Elliot Simpson, an investigator from the National Transportation Safety Board, shared more on the tragedy.
The pilot reported to air traffic control that he was going to perform a missed approach, which is generally happens when a pilot can't see the runway environment.
Air traffic control then gave clearance to the pilot to perform a public missed approach, then cleared the airplane to return the landing once again.
Airplane crashed about 500 feet short of runway 18, which was appeared to be the original intended landing runway. Debris field was about 200 feet long. Most of the airplane, with the exception of the tail, was consumed by fire. 6 people on board, and all were fatal.
Elliott said shortly before landing, the marine layer began to envelop the area with low ceilings and visibility.
When you fly on an instrument approach, you're not going by reference to the outside of the airplane. You're flying with reference to the inside instruments on the airplane. It appears that the weather was at the minimums for landing at that airport, so it would have been half a mile of visibility, and 300 feet overcast is what the weather was, and that appeared to meet the minimums for that instrument approach.
Witnesses confirmed the dense fog that approached that morning.
It looked like a snow blanket right over the shrubbery right here. It's a natural preserve, lots of water underneath, and it reminds me I'm from Michigan. It reminds me of being in a snow blizzard almost. That's how dense the fog was.
The plane had departed from Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas for the 45-minute flight to Marietta. The victims have been identified as Abigail Vargas, 33 of Marietta, Reese Lenders, 25 of Ranchos Palos Verdes, Manuel Vargas, 32 of Temecula, Lindsay Gleish, 31 of Huntington Beach, Elma Rossick, 51 of Temecula, and Ibrahim Rossick, 46 of Temecula. This is the second fatal crash within 4 days at the French Valley Airport. On July 4th, 1 man was killed and 3 people were injured when a single-engine Cessna 172 crashed shortly after takeoff. Christina Corona, NTD News, California.
In the neighboring county of Los Angeles, a landslide continues to threaten more homes. Meanwhile, UCLA geologists are looking to AI for predicting where and why landslides may occur. Here's a look.
A major landslide continues to threaten more homes in LA County's Rolling Hills estates. 12 were destroyed when the hillside gave way and began sliding into the canyon below. Cracks and movement continued on Sunday. A total of 16 people have been evacuated so far. Officials fear the continuing landslide could force more evacuations. Some residents say an ongoing water leak could be to blame, as they said one homeowner received a $1,000 water bill and was told they had a leak. Now, utilities have been shut off in the area as officials investigate the landslide's cause. At the same time, geologists at UCLA recently announced a plan to use AI to predict where and why landslides may occur. The goal is to save lives and property in disaster-prone areas. The approach would be valuable in places like California, where natural disasters increase landslide zones. Researchers say the new method requires far less computing power than traditional AI and provides more accurate statistical calculations.
We'll now take a short break, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. California has a new law that aims to protect the endangered western Joshua tree. People will now need a permit and pay fees for removing any of the plants. San Francisco plans to repair city streets. The project will repave around 500 blocks of road around the city. And many volunteers spend their weekend helping veterans in Northern California. We spoke to a variety of vendors and heard why they offered free services at the county's veteran one-stop shop. Those stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today, everyone. I'm your host, David Zhang. In an effort to protect western Joshua trees in the state, California has a new law that aims to do just that. The law now bans tree removals without a permit, and if removed, a new fee will fund conservation efforts. Here's more.
A new law titled the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act took effect on July 1st. Supporters say the new law will protect the Western Joshua Tree by requiring the state to develop a conservation plan to minimize cutting down the trees. The law also requires a permit and a fee up to $1,000 for every tree that is cut down. According to the Center for Biological Diversity, this new law will be a first in California. Environmentalists applauded the move, but the bill was opposed by about 100 nonprofit conservation-related organizations. They claim the law would actually result in thousands of trees being cut down and undermine the California Endangered Species Act. Meanwhile, on the federal level, the Western Joshua Tree has been temporarily protected since the species became a candidate under the California Endangered Species Act in September 2020. However, earlier this year, the California Fish and Game Commission postponed a decision to permanently protect Western Joshua trees under the act. The commission found the protection was warranted, but decided to wait and see if the bill passed before making their decision.
Bridge tolls in the Bay Area may be increased. A bill that would temporarily raise bridge tolls just tackled its first assembly hurdle. Legislators say the bill will provide some much-needed funding to prevent service cuts on public transportation.
On Wednesday, the Assembly's Transportation Committee passed Senate Bill 532 in a 10-4 vote and will be heading to the Assembly Appropriations Committee next. SB 532 would temporarily raise tolls by $1.50 for 5 years. The bill's author, Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener, says the bill would provide public transportation with critical funds to avert service cuts and improve the system's safety, cleanliness, and reliability through the enactment of a bridge toll. Early in the pandemic, transportation ridership collapsed 5 to 10% of pre-pandemic ridership. Over the last year, Muni's ridership has increased by 1/3 and BART's by nearly 50%. If passed, the toll increase would be in effect January 2024 through December 2028. The 7 bridges that would see an increase include San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, San Mateo-Hayward Bridge, Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, Dumbarton Bridge, Carquinez Bridge, Benicia-Martinez Bridge, and the Antioch Bridge.
San Francisco will be fixing city roads. The mayor plans to invest over $77 million to pave 500 blocks over the next year. The goal is to keep the city's road condition in a good rating among the Bay Area's big cities.
San Francisco Mayor London Breed announced on Wednesday the city is planning to repave 500 blocks over the next year to help people get around safer and smoother. In a tweet, Breed said, "Our long-term paving plan has made San Francisco's road rating the highest of large cities in the Bay Area." She thanked San Francisco Public Works for their hard work. The project will cost about $77.3 million, using both local and state funding. A team will assess which blocks will be paved based on roadway condition, transit usage, and if it can be combined with infrastructure projects like sewer and water system upgrades to reduce disruption to residents and businesses. According to the press release, about 60% of the city's 13,000 blocks have been resurfaced in the last 10 years. That's about 7,700 blocks.
A U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer is being accused of allegedly accepting bribes to allow vehicles carrying drugs to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. The officer was recently scheduled for a court hearing.
A U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer was charged on July 3rd. An indictment unsealed states that Leonard Darnell George allegedly accepted bribes to allow drug-laden vehicles across the U.S.-Mexico border. Other charges in the indictment include allegedly coordinating the smuggling of methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin from Mexico into the U.S. San Diego U.S. Attorney Randy Grossman said in a statement, quote, "The indictment alleges that Officer George broke the very drug trafficking laws that he was supposed to enforce." And Sidney Aki, Director of Field Operations for CBP's San Diego branch, says the office will, quote, "cooperate fully as the case proceeds." Aki added that the vast majority of California Border Patrol officers are highly skilled, hardworking professionals dedicated to our mission of protecting the American public, and we do not stand for those that would tarnish our badge. George is due to appear in San Diego federal court for a detention hearing on July 6th.
And to wrap up the evening, when it comes to the nation's heroes, communities love to show support to our veterans. This was the case this past weekend in Silicon Valley. NTD's David Lam was on site at a county fairground in California.
We just had the 4th of July where people celebrated America's freedom. Now over this weekend, a lot of volunteers and veterans came by to this one-stop shop for giving back to the community and veterans that need it.
The Veterans Stand Down event was held at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds in San Jose over the July 8th weekend. And these are free services for veterans, ranging from haircuts, food, and farmers market to professional services and resources.
I was stung by some insect, and so I had to have that treated here on site. And so I was able to talk to one of the volunteer doctors who basically said that the swelling will go away. It is very helpful, especially if you're like right out of the military and maybe you moved into this area and you're not sure of how to navigate an area, or you're not sure about services involved. This is a perfect venue to come to find those types of needs.
One of those services is haircuts. Veronica Berries says the Veterans Affairs Department contacted her and her team to help out at the event, where each barber served about 10 haircuts per day.
So I'm a retired police officer, so I was on the force for a little bit, almost close to 14 years. And one of the biggest things when I got medically retired, I was concerned with, I've always done things for the community. How am I going to give back? How am I going to give back? So whenever they contact us to do anything like this, I'm so 100% for it, because it's like my way of still contributing, back to the community, back to the society.
There were also mobile, medical, and dental services.
We usually go out to different places in the Bay Area, helping with give medical care for homeless veterans. Today we're just giving medical care to the veterans that need it. We're establishing care. I love it. I've been doing this for at least 3 years now. I come from a family with a lot of military backgrounds.
This is the county's first stand-down event, made possible through a collaboration between many vendors and agencies. Stand-downs are typically 1 to 3 day events where U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs staff and volunteers participate. In the military, the term stand down refers to a period of relaxation after a state of alert.
Now, it has been a weekend of giving for this 2-day event. One of the volunteers told me he brought his son to be able to see what's going on here because he said, no matter where you are, it's important to give back. David Lam, NTD News, California.
Now let's hear from NTD's Carlos Reyes for your sports segment.
This is your California Sports Roundup, and I'm Carlos Reyes. The San Jose Earthquakes and LAFC played to an exciting 1-1 draw on Saturday evening at BMO Stadium in Los Angeles, California. A goal from Cristian Espinosa sees the Quakes earn a crucial point on the road against California rivals. Head coach Luchi Gonzalez shared his thoughts about his team's performance post-game.
Based on the circumstance and the challenge, missing some of these 6'8" profiles, right, in the midfield, we had to get creative. We had to think about obviously playing a very good LAFC team in LA, and trying to be organized defensively, yet get pressure on the ball, and also attack them, try to hurt them with the ball. So that was the formation and lineup that we thought could do it from the start.
The Earthquakes opened the scoring in the 30th minute thanks to forward Cristian Espinosa. Jack Scahan found Espinosa behind the back line to out-dribble the defender and fire the ball into the bottom corner. Los Angeles equalized from a penalty kick converted by Dennis Bwanga to end the first half 1-1. San Jose earned a red card in the 56th minute and played down a man for 30+ minutes to earn a point on the road in Los Angeles for the first time since 2020. The Earthquakes will now return home to prepare to face Seattle Sounders on Wednesday, July 12th. United States forward Megan Rapinoe will retire after this season, the 38-year-old said on Saturday, days before she leaves for the Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. The veteran will compete in her 4th World Cup when the tournament kicks off on July 20th, and said she will hang up her cleats after completing her National Women's Soccer League season.
I could have just never imagined where this beautiful game would have taken me. I feel so honored to be able to have represented this country and this federation for so many years. It's truly been the greatest thing that I've ever done.
Arguably one of the most recognizable figures in all of American soccer, Rapinoe earned the Golden Boot for her heroics in the 2019 World Cup, the same year that she helped to kickstart her team's pay equity fights against their own federation. Speaking to reporters in her home state of California, Rapinoe said she had known for about a year that this would be the point at which she would be ready to retire. Catch Rapinoe and the rest of the U.S. women's national team as they get set to kick off their World Cup campaign on July 22nd against Vietnam. Manny Machado drove in 5 runs with a pair of home runs off Max Scherzer, and Joe Musgrove worked 6 scoreless innings with the help of 3 double plays as San Diego defeated visiting New York in the rubber match of a 3-game series. Machado hit a 3-run homer in the first and a 2-run homer in the 5th, giving him 5 career homers against Scherzer. Musgrove allowed only 3 hits without issuing a walk and struck out 7 en route to his 7th straight win. He also hit 4 batters. Scherzer has given up 18 homers this season, including 5 in his last 2 starts and 11 over his last 7. He's already given up homers in 7 straight games. Machado's 5 homers are the most Scherzer has allowed to one player. Padres 6, Mets 2. That is it for today's Sports Roundup. Thank you for watching. I'm Carlos Reyes.
Thanks, Carlos. All right, everyone, that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts at ntd.com/California-today. You'll also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gunjin World, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. If you'd like to share news tips or let us know how we're doing, we'd love to hear from you. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.